Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Blues News Podcast, Season 2, Episode 2. I was just explaining to Luke, I've just filmed Episode 3, but that one will be coming out after this one. All a bit confusing, but I managed to not mess up the intro. Anyway, on today's episode, we're doing a Halifax preview. It's my first one of the season. I haven't done one for the first 6 games or so, just because I haven't had time to really get around to it. But we're back with the previews. Going to try and do them pretty much every game. And first up, Halifax game tomorrow at the time of filming. Luke Walsh from the Luke Walsh Football Podcast is a Halifax fan today. Firstly, Luke, if you want to just tell us a bit about, firstly, how are you? But also, if you want to just tell us a little bit about what you do with your own podcast and stuff, maybe give it a plug. I'll leave the link down below.
Brilliant, thank you. I'm all right at the moment. I've just come back from Ibiza, so I'm trying to get back in the zone for National League action. But no, in terms of my podcast, I've run a podcast on the National League as a whole. I cover all 24 clubs with my co-host Paul, who's a Wealdstone supporter. We have special guests on. I think we've had Robbie Savage on last week to talk about Forest Green Rovers. That was a good one. Justin Rees, that's a good one to mention in the South End podcast. Justin Rees. There's been a lot of people that we've had on. We've been quite fortunate. And of course, we stream live every Thursday, previewing every single fixture. So, I enjoy it. So it's a good laugh, to be fair. And I like covering the National League. I'm a bit of a bit of a geek when it comes to this division in a way. I'm not smart at anything else, but this division, I kind of know a lot about it. So,
Absolutely. I think one of the best guests you ever had on is probably Mark White, who I think Mark White's been on a few times, has he? More than once, I think.
He's been on 3 times because, you think Dorking manager, you can have him on once. It's a good story to talk about the rise. And the next thing you know, blooming heck, you can talk to this guy about literally anything. Yeah. So we're on about like which TV show, the second or third time, we're on about which TV show he'd much like to go on the most. So, it was a bit nuts, to be fair. But, I'm sure he'll be coming on again in the future.
Definitely. Well, so we'll get into it then. With Halifax today, basically with Luke, we're going to talk about pretty much talk all things about Halifax. We're going to start by talking about Halifax as a whole. So we'll cover things like last season. We'll also cover the playoffs. I was saying to Luke before the podcast, neither of us might not want to talk about that too much. Both getting knocked out by the same team. But if we start off by talking about the last season then as a whole. So another season in the playoffs for you, second season in a row for Halifax finishing in those playoff spots. How did you think the season went as a whole?
I thought we did very well finishing the playoffs. I think everyone always just assumes because Halifax have just kind of established themselves as a side that, has been able to at least compete for the playoffs in the past 5 or 6 years. Just assume that they're probably going to be, I say everyone, I think the fan base Halifax assume that we should be in the top 7 every year. Because historically, maybe not nowadays, but historically, we're a fairly big club in this division in terms of we've been in the Football League in the past, if you include the old club. But I think what seems to happen a lot, particularly with the Halifax fan base, is, like I've said, everyone just assumes that we should be in the top 7. Where you actually look, the budget-wise that we've probably got a bottom 6 budget. We've also had a lot of inconveniences as well in terms of the ground in the last couple of years. That's meant games have been postponed, which has led to fixture congestion. Even this season, we've had to play the first 4 or 5 games away from home. I think we've only played at home twice this season so far. 3 times actually. We've played at home this season compared to, I think, 5 away games or something. So for me, overall, I think there's been, like I said, if we go back to last season, I think there were a lot of factors to why we probably didn't do so well in the playoffs. But I think as a season as a whole, I think people forget the budget that we've got and how much we did actually overachieve.
Absolutely. So if we talk about the playoffs a little bit then, as I said, we don't want to talk about it too much. But, first game, Halifax had Oldham. And you don't need to tell South End fans how difficult of a team they were to play in those playoffs. An absolute nightmare. But you lost 4-0. Obviously, quite hammering. I watched it, and it was not a nice. It was not a nice sight if you're a Halifax fan, not at all. No. What happened in that game, Lee?
Well, We got. I think it's pretty simple. Everyone knows we got thumped. To be honest, there was a lot of factors, like I've mentioned, towards that. I think a lot of the players were tiring towards the end of the season. Something else. Throughout the season last year, we didn't have too many significant injuries, and then in the final third of the season, they all came flooding in. Now I don't know if everyone remembers, but there was Halifax, Rochdale, Gateshead, Altrincham, and were all not wanting to get in the playoffs. It felt, at the end of you're all on a really bad run. Now,
really bad run.
and
Southend managed to sneak in right at the end.
Because I don't think overall Southend fans as a season, and you can correct me if you're wrong, I don't think you were overly impressed, with the actual regular season. I say
it's weird. It was actually quite a frustrating season.
For you'd have gone promoted, it'd have been funny as hell, to be honest. But
absolutely. But it was quite a frustrating season most of the time. Quite a lot of the time. It's only right at the end where we started to pick up, and it seemed like other teams didn't want to get thrown around us.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I meant. But I think when I look at Halifax specifically, we had a large amount of injuries in that final third, and I mean a significant amount. A whole back four, which was pivotal last season, was all injured. A lot of the midfield key players were out injured. I think we had a player called Jack Evans who's gone on to sign for Barnet. He was probably the standout last season, and he was injured towards the back end of the season. We had to bring in a lot of new lads, and at that point, when you've not got a big budget, you're having to take chances on players. And at that stage of the season, you need probably that bit of experience or players that have played throughout the season and new lads that are falling out of academies coming into a side, with 5 or 6 games, 7 games to go. It's always going to take time for them to kind of bed in. And I think it eventually just caught up with us, to be honest. We didn't have a good end to the season. I think we probably could have finished 4th if the whole squad had have stayed fit. We'd beaten a lot of the better sides, and then we had a lot of sides that you think you should be beating towards the back end of the season, and we weren't, because it wasn't the same team in the first 2/3. Whereas that actual game itself, I know I've gone off topic now, but if you go back to that actual game itself, Oldham were ready. They're probably the fittest they've been all season, the strongest I think they've been all season. If you think of some of the players, 𝗛𝗟𝗓𝗓 going forward, Fondop was in good form at the time. Did that midfielder as well. Well, they had a couple of midfielders who were pretty good. Tom Pett, the list goes on defensively. They were just a very experienced side that I always thought were built for the playoffs. Coming up against a Halifax side who, those players, in my opinion, didn't get them in that position. And on the day, we got absolutely thumped. I think the occasion got too much for us. And it's frustrating, to be honest, because it's, like I said, I know I go on about the crowds a lot, but I think there's potential at Halifax there to build the crowds or get back to what they once were. Like, if you look at that game, we took over 2,000 fans away to Oldham. I know it's not far, but, still, if that was a home crowd, if we were getting that every week, then we'd be like, that's not too bad at all compared to what it actually is at the moment.
Yeah, I've heard you, because I think we spoke about this last time you were on, but I've heard you speaking quite a lot about on your own podcast, but also on Twitter and things like that, about Halifax's attendances and why they're so low. But for people who are watching this who aren't really sure, what are the main reasons behind why they're so low? Is it the experience on the match day, or what plays into it?
There's a number of factors. Neglect, I'd say, to the stadium. A lot of people love Halifax as an away day because of the town and everything, and it's a big stadium, and you can just picture it. If Halifax were getting, I don't think it'd be realistic to get this every match day, but if we were getting Southend crowds, for example, it'd be a really, really good, atmosphere and everything. I think even with 2,500, I think it'd be a good, atmosphere. With that stand behind the goal. But neglect the stadium, I'd say, overall. Facilities are awful, to be honest. It's not going to attract, families. It could do a lick of pain, if I'm being honest. I don't think that's the main reason either. Season ticket prices, and this is the reason I think in the last couple of years our crowds haven't been amazing. I think we've always complained saying it's just the same, 1,500 to 2,000 going every week. Are we actually going to start to grow it? And I thought, well, the thing is with Halifax, it'll never get below 1,500 because there's probably a core 1,500 fans there. Whereas what's recently happened is they've upped the prices, season tickets year on year, which I can understand because of the cost of living, because, we want to be a self-sufficient football club. You look at other clubs in our division who aren't the biggest, Solihull Moors, Forest Green. they pump a lot of money into the side. It is sufficient, but it's not in terms of the crowns that they get for, the players that they're bringing in, for example. Whereas Halifax want to be known as self-sufficient. The owner wants to be like that, which means that season ticket prices are probably going to be quite high. And every year they keep going up by about 30, 40, 50 pounds, which is going to put people off, renewing one, particularly considering Halifax is a working class town as well. It's not a particularly wealthy place if you actually look at it historically and everything, which that probably doesn't help the crowds. The fact that they charge quite high prices up north as well. I think when you look at it, catering, there's like one. I know it sounds quite pathetic, but there's one burger van and that's it. The bar, there's TVs in there, but they're never on. There's no match day experience like you've mentioned. No one will know because of when they're away fans, but under the south stand, there's a massive area, like there's a car park, there's everything. And if they could get a band or something in there, it'd attract a lot more families. And that's something I've noticed is I barely see any young people coming anymore. I barely see any families. It's just a couple of, if I'm being honest, there's not that many women either that I've seen at the Share, which I'm surprised that, to be honest, the club as a whole haven't looked to try and find initiatives to improve. I know recently they've reduced prices for one match day to £15, but I don't see that doing much because I think there's more to it than just the prices, although that is quite a big factor itself.
One thing that I wanted to talk about, which we spoke about in the last podcast, then we're going to talk about more things like players to look out for, things like that. I've also got something for us to try out in a bit, which would be interested. Make it at 1-11. So we'll try our best at that. We'll save that till last. But one thing I wanted to speak about, which we spoke about last time, because it's around 9 months to the day where we did our first had you on the podcast, and then we spoke about the National League Cup. And obviously then it was a really new thing. We didn't really know too much what it was going to be like, but I know you, myself included, many others were very, very critical of it. But you've had a full season of kind of experience in it now. So has your opinion changed at all, or are you still anti the National League Cup?
I'd still not rather have it as a fan. Yeah. I think the main reason is national FA Cup replays. I think if they were still in, I don't think there'd be much of an issue, but it does feel like that the reason they've scrapped them is to bring in this National League Cup. I think there's things to it that have kind of grown on me. For example, a lot of people might not have been aware of this, but a lot of when your Halifaxes, your Gatesheads are playing against Premier League 2 sides, not Premier League 2, under 21s or whatever it is, you're often finding a lot of hidden gems. So in terms of players that you can bring into loan, I should say. So Halifax have recently learnt in the lad from Newcastle under 21s. That's because they're aware of him from last season. I think Gateshead have done it in the past when they played teams, and I think all sides have. So it's a good opportunity for to see which players in the under 21 setup can actually compete against National League players and potentially fit into their system if they want to loan them out. Because I think a lot of Premier League under 21 sides want to get those players. They basically want to get those players playing men's football for the physicality side of it to then bring them back into the setup. So for that reason, I think it's good to be able to scout potential players to bring on loan. I also think potentially for fringe players or players coming back from fitness, it's a good opportunity for them to actually be playing. So if players have been out for a long time, to get them in those type of games, which maybe I'm wrong when I say this, but I think it's probably not as physical as the National League. So it's a good way to steady them back into the first team. I think there's a few, and also I think the money side as well. I think you'd be fooled. A lot of people say, well, why have our club entered this? But I'm like, the thing is to it is, they're basically turning down free money. Why on earth would they do that? There's a reason they want to actually be in the competition. I think Southend are one of the only sides that aren't. Well, Southend probably don't need the money, to be honest. With the ownership there, same probably York as well. They don't need the money. Whereas the Halifaxers, they'd be foolish to turn down free money, to be honest, and an opportunity to actually. I think there's quite a lot of money that you can actually win. I think there's $1 million, but obviously it gets shared out. But it's a lot of money for this level overall. So I think you'd be quite foolish to turn it down. However, there are things about it, although it's kind of grown on me, that I think are a bit pathetic. For example, you've got to, I think, from the Saturday game to the Tuesday game, you've got to have a certain amount of first teamers that are in the starting 11 for the Tuesday game to keep it, because I think the under 21 sides will be like, well, we're not playing against first teams, we're playing against, B teams. And it's like, yeah, but the thing is, these players, I think Rochdale did it. All they're going to do is Rochdale. They had Sam Beckwith, who played on the Saturday. They started him on the Tuesday, and then they subbed him off after the first minute. And a lot of clubs have done that recently, and you can't blame them. I just think you're not doing yourselves as a governing body who run the competition. You're not doing yourselves any good or improving your reputation or getting people to come on board if you've basically bringing in silly rules like that, where a certain amount of players from the previous game week have to start on the Tuesday, and there's loopholes to that as well.
Yeah, I think that's always something with me that I find a bit weird. And I didn't actually know that role, because obviously, as you say, Southend aren't in it, so I'm not too clued up on the National League Cup. But I always find it weird when competitions put in rules, kind of controlling what starting 11s. Yeah. I think we saw it in the Club World Cup. I'm pretty sure they did something there where you had to play your strongest starting 11, or there was some weird rule there. I always find that a little bit weird, to be honest. So if we talk about your business over the summer, then it's been a pretty busy summer for Halifax. I won't read out every player that you've signed, but just a few of the key ones. 𝗛𝗟𝗪𝗚𝗪 from York. You've got players like familiar face Sean Hobson. Another sort of familiar face in 𝗣𝗥𝗘𝗩𝗜𝗪 from Averley, who some Southend fans will know the name because I believe he was a player we were looking at. Quite a well-respected forward. So, just tell us about, we'll start off with the incomings then, because we'll talk about the outgoings in a minute. But if you start with talking about the signings that you've made over summer.
To be honest, I think a lot of them have got a lot of potential. I'm quite excited for this season, considering we've not had the best of starts. A lot of people may think I'd come on here complaining, but I think there's been a lot of factors like the likelihood of playing the first 3 games away from home. But in terms of the actual signings, I'm quite impressed, and I can only see them improving. Sean Hobson, for example, I think is as good a replacement for the players that we've lost in that position as you're going to get. Southend fans will be well aware of him. I think he was quite liked at Southend, and of course he went up to Oldham. And I think he kind of struggled to get into the team there, which doesn't necessarily mean he's not good enough for this level. I think he certainly is. I think he's one of the best centre-halves in this division, and I think he could probably do a job in the division above as well. He stands out. Cody Johnson, he was at Stockport, but he was on loan at Kings Lynn last year. And a lot of people from that division, I was speaking to a Scunthorpe fan. I was on their podcast the other week. He basically stated that you've got one hell of a player in Cody Johnson. He don't wanted Scunthorpe to sign in him. And I know Stockport fans rated him quite highly as well because he's come through the setup there. He stands out as well. 𝗣𝗥𝗘𝗩𝗜𝗪, who you've mentioned, who Southend were rumoured to sign. We've been lacking a prolific goal scorer, someone who's got the potential to be prolific going forward in the last couple of years, who looks like a natural striker. Like, you'll be aware of him, Aaron Cosgrave.
Yeah.
I don't like picking on individuals, but he didn't look good enough for this division. He didn't look interested, or it wasn't really his ability. It was more just it was his ability, but it was more of a case of like the way he positioned himself and everything. It's hard to put my finger on. But 𝗣𝗥𝗘𝗩𝗪𝗚 looks like a striker. He looks like he wants to be there. And he's already scored, I think, twice this season so far. He looks good, and I don't think he's actually known as someone who, I think there's more to him than just scoring goals. He's not a target man as such. There's a lot to him, which excites me. I think he's quite an exciting player, and I'm glad we've signed him at the end, because I know there were a few clubs interested in him, including yourselves, and I think Boston as well, and Braintree might have been. He stands out for me. I think he'll only get better. And then, of course, we've signed Will Harris, who's come from the division below. Track record on paper isn't the best, but he looks like a target man. He is that target man, and he looks like the player that's could potentially be prolific for us. He got a goal the other night, not the other night, on Saturday. He scored the winner. not had the easiest of starts, but he was scoring a lot in pre-season. But then, his regular season started, missed a penalty on the opening day, and then got sent off the next day. And then he's come back into the side and scored straight away. And I think that takes, quite a lot of character to be able to do that, coming off from the bench as well on last Saturday. So, he stands out. So you've got him and Harris up top. Him and Cower, I should say, up top. There's a lot of signings, to be honest. I think there's been a lot more incomings than outgoings. Trying to think, I think there's a few I have missed there, but I think one final one I'll talk about is 𝗛𝗙𝗪𝗚. Good going forward, but defensively, he's one of those most frustrating players I've ever seen. Was at Scunthorpe away, and one of my pet aches in football isn't when you lose the ball. Nothing wrong with that, and Southend fans will understand this, because I think the Southend side overall, if they do lose the ball, they work really hard to get it back. Well, we're going forward. We're looking. I think Scunthorpe were down to 10 men, and we're looking to take the lead. And he lost the ball in a bad area, and then he were like jogging back. And then Cal Roberts, who everyone's probably aware of in this division, took on about 3 players, dragged the centre halves out of position because he wasn't in his 𝗛𝗙𝗪𝗚 wasn't in his position because he wanted to pace him back. And then he took on 2 players, dragged them out of position, and then scored. It was like something off FIFA, and it all came down to him losing the ball and not being in position. Then again, 10 minutes later, he went and put a cross in to get the equaliser. And there's things to his game that I love. Like, I think he's got a lot of ability going forward, but it's just things like not chasing back. I know I'm waffling a little bit, but it's just one of my pet hates.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I hate it when a player jogs back and doesn't quite. Yeah, honestly, if I was the manager, I'd be saying sprint back. But so if we talk about your outgoings then, because there have been a few. So some big ones like Jack Evans, so I believe went to Harrogate. Quite a lot of them have made the step up as well, which I guess says quite a bit about Halifax's ability as a team last season, because 3 of your players at least have gone up to move up to League 2, 2 of which to 𝗛𝗏𝗏. Clearly, they're robbing you this summer, 𝗛𝗛𝗟𝗜𝗓 and Ryan Goulburn. So it's clearly some quite big outgoings, not loads, but there have been some big ones. So if you want to talk about the outgoings then.
Well, there were 4 key players. 3 of them actually they took from as another player was on loan, and we wanted to sign him, and he went to Barnet as well. I kind of knew that Dean Brennan was probably going to look at some Halifax players, because last summer when I had him on my podcast, he were praising Halifax quite a lot, saying we're probably the best side he'd seen, which I don't think many managers will say because of the way we play.
Leave our players alone.
Well, I'm a bit like, but I just thought it's going to happen. If Barnet didn't come in for him, then another side would have done, to be honest. But no, of course, he signed Adam Senior, who's been there for a couple of years, played every single game, every minute as well last season.
Wow.
He's been excellent. He was excellent and has been a great servant for us, and definitely deserves the opportunity to make the step up. And I'm glad he has made the step up and not gone to a club in this division like a lot of players have in the past. Jack Evans, he went to Harrogate. I know for a fact Dean Brennan wanted to sign him as well at Barnet, but he chose to go to Harrogate, probably geographically, because I think Barnet's a little bit more attractive, I would have thought. I think they've got a bit more potential than Harrogate have. I think they'll probably be back in our division at some point. But no, he went to Harrogate. He's doing well there now. And then Ryan Galvin, he was probably the one player I wasn't that particularly sad to see go. He's a bit like 𝗛𝗙𝗪𝗚, good going forward, and then defensively doesn't particularly offer much. Has a mistake in him, but he did get quite consistent towards the end of last season. But I was quite surprised that Barnet signed him, but then I wasn't, because I think he'd fit into a Barnet system in a back 5, probably not in a back 4. And then the final one was Scott High as well. He was on loan at us, and he went to sign for Barnet. But Scott High and Evans didn't even play for the final 10-15 games last season because they were out injured, and they were our 2 best midfielders. So that had a detrimental effect on us overall, and that's probably the reason that we didn't do so well. But no, there were no players that I felt were replaceable. I think the 2 losses I were quite disappointed with was Jack Evans, who I think Cody Johnson's going to be his type of replacement, and then also Adam Senior at the back. But we've got a good record of being able to find good replacements, particularly defensively. I can't remember a season where we were leaking a lot of goals.
So one more thing I want to talk about, and then we're going to give it a go. Try and do it combined 11. I might need you to take the reins on that a bit, because I know you know a bit more about National League. But we will give that a go in a minute. One more thing I just wanted to ask you about. Obviously, I've said throughout the podcast that you know quite a bit about National League. What do you make of Southend's summer? Because I think it's been a big summer for us, and really not any big outgoings at all.
That's what's key for me. No huge outgoings. Because, you know, a lot of people will look at Southend and go, oh, I've not been too impressed with them. You know, they've got new ownership now. Why are they not splashing the cash? I think as the window went on and actually as the season started, they kind of basically told us all that, no, we are capable of you know, spending big money. Well, not spending big money, but, you know, bringing in good players and probably on higher wages, which I think they deserve because Southend get the crowds for that. But no, I thought in summer, like I said, I was really impressed because I think it says a lot where you're not having to make many additions, particularly when we know Southend can, because they know that last season's squad was pretty set and, you know, it's only going to get better under Kevin Mayer. I think the forward areas were the only areas for me where you were a bit like, maybe a couple of players there. But I think the way Southend play, they're not going to be scoring loads and loads of goals. They're just going to be really hard to beat and be able to grind out results. And that's what they were last season. And I think probably the one thing was potentially in that final third, not just opportunities, but creating opportunities in the final third. And I think Sam Austin brings that. I think he's that player that can thread through that final pass in that like attacking midfield position, can also score himself. You know, he's a great individual that I think will, you know, suit that kind of number 10 role at Southend United. Going forward, strikers wise, I thought a lot of players got better as the season went on. I thought Charlie Kendall, I don't think everyone were particularly too impressed when he signed for Southend, but I thought he was excellent and has been decent for you so far this season as well. Works his socks off as well.
Absolutely. I mean,
not necessarily,
so he scored already this season, and he probably should have a few more, but he's been absolutely quality. He's one of those players that you probably shouldn't, you know, any other fans probably shouldn't just look at on paper at his stats. He's so good in game, and he's been quality up top. Him and Dallas have worked so well together. They're a perfect partnership. I think they're going to be great for us.
Well, that's the thing with Andrew Dallas as well, coming on to him. You know, you speak about that partnership. You've got Kendall there, who isn't necessarily going to be the 20-goal season striker, but he doesn't need to be. You've mentioned there's more to his game than that. He worked his socks off. Southend have got quite a deadly press that worked on that opening day. You know, that's a prime example of, you know, the press being effective against Gateshead. You know, that worked on the opening day there for Southend, and that's probably because of him a lot of the time. But then you've got Andrew Dallas now that offers something different. You know, he's that player that's probably capable of getting you 15 goals this season. Can hold the ball up well as well.
His hold-up players, I've been really impressed with. He can hold it up and then get it to Kendall. And
exactly.
And the thing is, like I said that Kendall probably should have a few more. But when I say that, to be honest, quite a big part of that is one of the chances that I can remember in particular, and I think there's been a few more, is him having a shot where he probably should have passed. But in all honesty, as annoying as it is when there's a clear pass on to get a goal, I don't actually mind the striker having a shot and not scoring, because it shows confidence, I think. But if you take a shot as a striker when you know there's a pass on, it shows you're confident and you think you can score. So, I think they're going to be great for us. I
wouldn't know the exact moment, but like I think when you're in that position a lot of the time, and it might have been one where it literally pass on. I don't know when it was, but a lot of the time, if you'd have passed it and then the Ant scored, they'd have said, "Oh, why don't you shoot?" So I think you know, it's nice, but it might have been one where it were only 2 on the goalkeeper. But I don't know, but that's what I'd assume.
It was actually quite like that, as basically running the goalkeeper. But even then, you know, if he'd passed to Dallas and Dallas had kind of got under his feet or messed it up, then people would be saying, why didn't Charlie Kendall? I think with Southend, the thing this season that we've got where we didn't have last season, the biggest difference is we're finding ways to pick up points and win. Where last season, I mean, when we beat Truro, for example, or we beat Solihull, you know, against Solihull, where this season where we went 1-0 up, then we conceded and it went back to 1-1. Like last season, we would 100% have drawn or lost that game. I'm certain of it. But this season, we just have a new kind of mentality where we can just win games. And I think we just have like this winning mentality, winning spirit around the club at the moment, which is really, really good. Well, to wrap up then, I think let's give it a go. So
Go on, then.
the rules are for this. So I've done this before once or twice, I think. I think I did it with a Rochdale fan before. But the rules are for this. The goalkeeper can be either team. It doesn't really matter. And then obviously 10 more outfield players, 5 of each club. So that it's fair.
Yeah.
So we'll give this the best go we can. I've got some names in my head that should definitely be in it, and I'm sure you do too. So if we start with the goalkeeper then, obviously this doesn't count towards the 5 of each club. So we can have either one. So I'll start with our 2 options, the Southend, then you can talk about the Halifax ones. Nick Hayes, who obviously had a pretty decent season last season, and is a solid keeper. But he has lost his starting position this season. Yeah, which probably took you and maybe some others by surprise, because you think Nick Hayes, a lot of experience at these kind of levels. But Colin is just such a quality keeper, and actually possibly our most underrated player, in my opinion, which might anger some Southend fans, because I know they're a little bit split on him sometimes. But I think this season is quality so far. So yeah, it's been a great season for Colin so far. But who are the Halifax options?
We've only got one. We have a backup keeper, but they never play at Halifax. It's not like Southend or like a Barnet where you can adjust between goalkeepers.
It's quite rare to have 2 keepers of such quality at one club at this level.
Yeah, exactly. Don't feel fair. Yeah, well, no, I don't think it's an issue, because it's just if one gets injured, you've got one there. But then again, Halifax, we did it last season. You just loan a keeper in. But the thing is with Halifax that's different is the fact that we've had Sam Johnson, who's been consistent over the past nearly a decade now at Halifax. So no players ever. There's not many goalkeepers that are going to be able to, be able to compete with him. For me, this is one, and you mentioned there 5 each. I think if it wasn't that, I'd be majority across the squad going Southend. This is one of the only areas for me where I'm quite certain it kind of has to be the Halifax keeper, because consistently over the last couple of years, he's got the most clean sheets in a couple of those seasons. He's been pivotal for us. I think overall, maybe not this season with the way he started, he's made 1 or 2 mistakes, but I think if you consider his time at Halifax, what he's done. People will say Harrison Mayle at York City, whatever. It's Sam Johnson is the best goalkeeper in the division for me overall. And that's the one thing where people say, well, you're biased, but there aren't many things that I'll say about Halifax, but that's one thing that I think Sam Johnson's the best keeper in the league. And, Southend's goalkeepers, Nick Hayes and Colin Nindai, I think it is, if I pronounce that right. If you look at both of those, I think probably about half of the division will take one of those as their number 1 goalkeeper. Either of them, to be honest. They're good goalkeepers. But I just think Sam Johnson, if you see what he's done, I don't think any other goalkeeper could compete in this division, if I'm being honest. Everyone will say Harrison Mayle, but you saw what he did in that blooming semi-final against Oldham, didn't you, sir? I think for me, I'd have to go Sam Johnson's best keeper in the league, but I think I'd pick him in this starting 11.
Cool. Yeah. No worries. So I'll let you have that one, because I'm sure I'll get a few later. So if we start off with the defence, then I suppose if we play a 4-4-2, what position do Halifax play normally? Because if it's the same as Southend's, then we could just play that.
It was last season, and I'm trying to remember it now because they've kind of adjusted the way they've played because we've had a lot of injuries. So I reckon we do Southend system, which is a 5-3.
It's like a 3-5-2.
It's like a 3-5-2, yeah. So it's because obviously you have the fullbacks, and then obviously you have Dallas and Kendall up top, or just with Hopper. So I reckon we go 3-5-2 or 5. Whatever it would be.
That works, cool. So if we start with the centre backs, then one name, and Luke, if you disagree with this, I don't care. He's going in. Harry Taylor, the first name in those centre backs for me. In my opinion, call me biased, I think he's one of, if not the best centre back in the league. Quality centre back. In my opinion, in my time watching Southend, probably the most consistent player I've ever seen for us. Harry Taylor's got to go in there for me. Is there any shouts for Halifax? There's a few more I can think of for Southend.
I reckon what would be fair for this, when I think of those 3 centre backs, I reckon we go for 2 Southend centre halves and then 1 Halifax. this season anyway. I think 𝗛𝗥𝗘𝗩𝗜 as well. I like him as a centre half. I think him and Taylor are
he's very good at, in the air, clearing the ball and things like that. He's a very
those never get touched at Southend. They'll never be dropped. I don't think either of them.
He's a very nasty kind of. He's one of those nasty centre backs that you want at National League level. He's a really tough tackling kind of. He can clear the ball miles with his head. That sort of player. So I'd put him in there. I always make a shout for Joe Gubbins. I wouldn't put him in this because I do think at this moment in time 𝗛𝗥𝗘𝗩𝗜 should get in over him. But I do think Joe Gubbins is a player to watch for the future. I think he's a quality player, and I feel like he's very like modern centre back where he's so good with his feet. He could easily play defensive midfield, I think. But so 𝗛𝗥𝗘𝗩𝗜 and Taylor. So who's your Halifax option for the centre back?
Well, this is where it becomes difficult because a lot of great centre halves. But a lot of them are out injured. Haven't even kicked a ball this season yet. So I don't know if you can actually pick them. So Will Smith last season, he won't be with us now, I don't think, if it wasn't for his injury. But he's not going to be back until Christmas. So it doesn't feel fair putting him in, considering he's not kicked a ball this season. Okay. Joe Cummins as well, he's another one. Excellent last year. He's out injured until, I think, late November, December. We've been dealt quite badly with injuries. So I don't think it's fair to pick him either. And the only other one that I think can really compete consistently would be Sean Hobson. And even him this season, he I think he's been out injured in the last couple of games, but started well. And obviously last season as well, was a bit of a fringe player. But I think it depends what we're basing it off. Are we basing it off overall like injuries?
Really, however you want to. I guess what we could base it off is if you have to start this at 11 tomorrow or something. Yeah. I guess if we did that like that would probably make the most sense.
Right. Well, Sean Hobson's, I don't know if he's going to be back or not, but I think it's fair to put him in because, he's played this season. And I think as a centre half overall, his ability.
I like that.
Yeah.
Cool. Nice. So we've got to add him in, haven't we? Really. So if we move on to the left wing back spot then, so there's a clear name for Southend this season.
Yeah.
But is there anybody from Halifax who can really challenge Harry Boyes?
Nah, I don't. The fullbacks is probably our weakest position, but I think what we've got to consider. This is what I mean. What we've got to consider now is that there's got to be 5 Halifax and 5 Southend.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Yep.
Yeah, and it's like I almost feel like taking one of the Southend centre backs out to put a Halifax one in, and then put the full-backs in, and then we've got midfielders and attackers for Southend Halifax.
Yeah. It's difficult. So I know one attacker who I would like from Halifax, so I think there's definitely one Halifax in that attack force. But it's difficult. That's why I like doing the 5 and 5 because it gets very like if you don't do the 5 and 5, basically you just get a Southend team with maybe one Halifax.
Well, no, we did these kind of things for the playoffs and stuff. We did one for like Southend and Oldham combined in the final, but it was a lot more even and harder itself without even having like 5 and 5. And I think, to be honest, if we're being brutally honest at the moment, maybe not last season, but this season, it's going to be dominated by Southend players. So you've got to think more strategically about it. The fullbacks, I don't think there's any Halifax players that could compete. So I'm going to go Boyes. I think he's been one of the standouts. And another example of, a strategic signing, I think, for Southend, not a big money name signing, but I think he's been excellent this season for you guys going forward.
He's provided great balance because whereas last season, basically all of our attacks went down the right-hand side. And also, the thing you might actually see this season is you might see Gus scoring a similar amount or at least kind of near what he did last season. If not more. Because Harry Boyes has got such cross on him, swings it in, and Gus is right there to get a goal. And that's exactly how he scored his goals last season. So, so you're saying two Southend wing-backs then?
Well, I've Harry Boyes, and then I'd be foolish to not put Gus Scott Morris in. So, I'm nothing to go for those two, So,
do you want to take one of the Southend ones out, or?
So we've got 4 now, haven't we? And that means we can only have one midfielder. Trying to think who I want in. Going forward, there's going to be a striker. Does there? Then you've got a midfielder. Who would you have as parallel Austin? We'll take one centre half out because I'd put Will Smith in, but it's like he's not played this. If he, let's say we were doing it and it was last season and there were no injuries or anything, if I'm being honest, I probably would have more Halifax centre halves in.
Yeah, you can assume the players are all fully fit, if you like.
Right, we'll change it around a bit. I'll put Will Smith in then, and then we'll keep Harry Taylor in, and then we'll bring Goodliff out. So Smith, Hobson, and Taylor will be the 3 centre halves.
So if we go for the 3 in midfield, then so we've got 3 Southend and 2 Halifax so far. So we can have 2 more Southend and 3 more Halifax. So if we go into the midfield, then some names for Southend wise: 𝗛𝗙𝗪𝗏, really skillful midfielder in that midfield. Sam Austin, as you mentioned, another really good player. Leon Parallon, there's quite a lot of names for Southend, really. Cav Miley, I probably wouldn't put him in at the moment. I don't think.
Not at the moment. No.
Not at the moment.
No, servant to the club and what he's done in the and how consistent he's been. Yeah, but I don't think at the moment, if I'm being honest now.
Yeah, not at the moment. But probably a season or 2 ago, he would have been one of the first players I put in there. But he's had an injury and he's just still probably recovering a little bit. So those are really the main options for midfield. I suppose the name for centre back that we didn't mention would be Nathan Ralph, our captain, but again, he's injured at the moment, and I wouldn't put him in over Taylor. So if we're going to have 2 Halifax, I wouldn't do that. But so those are really the main Southend midfield. It's quite hard to think of the top of your head. I guess Norwho's in, but I wouldn't put him in personally. But those are the main ones. Is there any options for Halifax for midfield?
When I think about it, because I've got it up now and I'm thinking of the midfielders that we've got, there's more than I'd thought. Will Hugel's been good. He's only 20 years old. The way he plays like he's a proper experienced player, considering his age. We had Florent Hotte. I wouldn't have him in over Austin there, but he's been injured, so he could have potentially competed. It wouldn't be, let's say, like, oh my God, you've had Hotte in over Austin. But I'd put, if we weren't doing it 5 and 5 each, I would have Austin over Hotte. Austin over Hotte. But if we won't, because of what we're doing, I'll probably have a Halifax player in that number 10. 𝗛𝗥𝗘𝗩𝗏 we've brought on loan, and he's only played a couple of games, but he scored a free kick on his debut against Forest Green, and he just looks like a player that's a cut above this division. So I think I'd have him in the number 10. Midfield wise, 𝗛𝗪𝗏 and Cody Johnson are very similar players. I think if you look in terms of what 𝗛𝗪𝗏 did last season, he's proven at this level. But I think Cody Johnson's got the potential to, and this is where I might be being a bit biased. I'd probably have Cody Johnson in there, and then I'd have Turner Cook attacking midfield. And then the other midfielder, I think it has to be a Southend player, and I would actually have a Southend player as well.
I agree, I think 1 Southend player in midfield, 2 Halifax. So, for midfield for Southend?
Yeah, I'm going to go Parallon. I think. Who are you thinking? Were you not thinking anymore?
Oh, no, he would be one of the 2 that I was thinking. I'd probably edge it with 𝗛𝗙𝗪𝗏. I think maybe just because I think in a central midfield role, that's probably more suits.
I'm thinking of balance though. Like how I'm judging it is like as if this were going to go out. I think 𝗛𝗪𝗏 and Cody Johnson are very energetic, kind of all over the place type of midfielders that work the socks off. Where I think Parallon for me is a little bit more steady. If that makes sense. So I'd have Parallon there. But I think for Halifax, who else could compete? Owen Bray's been excellent. But I think Parallon last season was excellent when he came in, and I think this season he has been as well. So I'd have Parallon, Johnson, and then 𝗛𝗥𝗘𝗩𝗏 in the attacking midfield role.
Cool, perfect. And then up front, I think this is going to be relatively straightforward. I think I know who you're going to say for Halifax. 𝗛𝗥𝗘𝗪𝗏. Is that who you're going to say for Halifax? Or
I'll go with 𝗛𝗪𝗏. Will Harris, I think, has got potential to be really good, but he hasn't played enough, and Cower's played in the majority of the games, and
he's had a good start as well, Cower. We'll go for it. And the other striker, I mean, it's one of 2. It's definitely one of 2. It's not Tom Hopper. It's between.
Don't disrespect Hopper.
But it is between Dallas and Kendall for me. I've done your trick, so I've got the team up now as well. Josh Walker, I do think is a good player, but I don't think he'd get in over Charlie Kendall or Andrew Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those, and really, it's a toss-up. I would say because of his experience at this level, I'd be tempted to go for Andrew Dallas just because of his, he's much more proven at this level than Kendall, I think. So yeah, I'd probably go for Dallas, but would you agree?
I would, because I think Kendall, and coming back to my point about when Hobson and 𝗪𝗪𝗓𝗓, I think 𝗪𝗪𝗓𝗓 and Kendall are probably quite similar. I think Kendall probably presses more. So I think if you're having a small, like, number 9 that plays off the 10, not the 10, but like the target man, I think you'd have 𝗪𝗪𝗓𝗓 from a Halifax one, but then as the target man, I think it would have been a toss-up between Will Harris and Dallas, and that's easy. You'd have Dallas, whereas Kendall and 𝗪𝗪𝗓𝗓, it's like, that's what I mean. So I'm a bit like, I'll pick 𝗪𝗪𝗓𝗓 there, and then Southend one's easy. I'd have Andrew Dallas over Will Harris because of what he's done in the past, and he's clearly can be prolific. So yeah.
Nice. So I think I hope that our maths is right, and we've got 5 and 5.
So we try to do it quickly, or just trying to think.
What put the whole team together?
No, well, I'm just trying to think now. You've got Johnson in there. That's what I'm saying. So Johnson, and you've got 3 centre halves.
Yeah, one was Southend, which was Harry Taylor, and then there was 2 Halifax,
Smith and Hobson, and then you'd have your fullbacks, Boys, and just Scott Morris. How many is that? Southend, 3 Southend.
3 Southend, 2 Halifax, I think. Yep.
Yeah, and then in the midfield we had Parallon from Southend with 2 Halifaxes, and then going forward we had so it does work. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So I'll put this all on screen as we're doing it. So it'll make more sense to those at home. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up today's podcast. Thank you very much, Luke. It's a pleasure to have you on again. I had you on 9 months ago, I think I said earlier. Mm-hmm. So it's good to have you back on. Is there anything you want to say just before I end it?
No, thanks for having me on once again. That's all. I do really appreciate being invited on. And there'll be a space for you on my podcast as well at some point in the season.
Super.
So yeah.
Thank you, Luke. Well, there is one more thing to do, and I know you have your own predictions league with Paul Frank and your co-host. So I don't know if you'll want to give a prediction now.
I can easily do one, actually, because
go for it.
Because I didn't do I was in a beef for travelling back, so I didn't do my show last night. I got Paul to do it with another Wheelstone fan.
Oh, okay.
So they went live and I went on it last night. So I haven't done any predictions yet. But it's at Southend, and we've got an awful record at Southend. I don't know. Southend, to be fair, we haven't even spoke quite much, but they're coming off a defeat, aren't they, at Wheelstone?
Try not to speak about it too much.
Yeah, and I find Roots Hall a very difficult place to go, and I've actually said we'll not win. I don't see that, but I think Roots Hall, and this is kind of one of my bold predictions, but I think it's very realistic. I don't think you're going to lose a game at home this season. At home, wow. I think you'll remain unbeaten at home. Yeah. I don't necessarily think you'll win the league at all, or even maybe go up, but I can't see you losing a game at home this season. But Halifax is one of the few sides I could see getting a point because of the way we play. I've got to be sensible. I'm going to go 2-0 Southend. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
My prediction is 3-1 win. So
yeah.
But yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much for coming on, Luke. We'll see what happens. Best of luck, but not too much luck.
Yeah, same for you, I suppose.
Yeah, brilliant. But yeah, thank you very much, Luke, for coming on. If anybody did enjoy, that's a tongue twister. If anybody did enjoy, please make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. The next one, as I said earlier, I have already filmed it. I'll let you all know what it is now. It's an interview with 𝗪𝗪𝗓𝗓𝗪. It lasted about an hour and a half, so obviously it's my longest one yet. A very, very long podcast, but hopefully should be worth it because it was really, really good one to film. Really great guest, so chatty. And also, what many of you won't know at home is that he actually has played in multiple different countries since he left Southend, including Czech Republic, Lithuania. He's been all over the place. So, and now he's at Morton Tiptree. So, yeah, if anybody wants to watch that, should be out in the next few days, probably a week or so. But yeah, thank you very much again, Luke, for coming on. Thank you everyone for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure to like and subscribe. See you on the next one.